Good morning to everyone tuning in. And of course, if you're um, in another country, it might be afternoon for you. But today, I wanted to talk about basically financial literacy and what you also see probably on the subject title, which is debt freedom and also passive income as well. So I'm excited about getting on here and having a conversation on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And of course, my YouTube channel is Coach Steele Finance Training. So I'm excited to be on social media today and to talk about financial literacy just a little bit. For all of those who choose to tune in, great. If you don't, then fine, catch it later. But just excited about the subject matter on today of financial literacy. And of course, if as I go through this process and discuss financial literacy, if someone does have a question, feel free to type in your question. If I'm able to see it, then I'll try my best to answer it. But anything I do discuss today, just keep in mind, do your own research, go back and follow up, and make sure that it makes sense for you. So I am not a super duper financial guru and I do not have all the answers. So definitely go back and do your own research after we discuss whatever it is today that we discuss. That way you can verify what I'm talking about makes sense for you. So definitely good morning to everyone. And I hope everyone's having an excellent day. And I look forward to talking about, like I said, financial literacy. And why is financial literacy important? That's the first thing. Why is financial literacy important? And what is financial literacy? You know, financial literacy, good morning, Mr. Marcus Smart, about to say Marcus Smart, Marcus Scott. Now, I know you probably are saying, well, you are smart, but I was talking about the NBA player, Marcus Smart. But good morning, Mr. Scott, to you. But when we talk about financial literacy, why is financial literacy important? Financial literacy is a game changer. It's literally a game changer for you, and it's a game changer for your family and anyone connected to you, really, because as you have a better understanding of financial literacy, it empowers you. You're able to do so much more for yourself and for your community. And so those who have a high level of financial literacy are thriving and doing well, and those around them, especially their family, their circle of people, are thriving and doing well. So what you have to do is challenge your financial literacy level and continue to build on it and continue to grow. So don't get comfortable in one spot when we talk about financial literacy. How, understanding finances, understanding why money works and how money works is very, very important. It's very, very important. And is money everything? No, money is not everything. Money should not control you and money should not consume you, but you do need finances to thrive. One way or another, you do need currency to thrive. Now, of course, there are some very, very small exceptions that if you do live off somewhere and you live off of your cattle and you live off of the vegetables and things that you grow, which is a very small number of people, then cash or finances don't play as big of a role in your life as it would other people. But for the most part, most people need finances, need cash, need money, need dollars to live off of every single day or essentially month to month. So it's important that you improve your financial literacy. So today I want to talk about financial literacy. I do want to talk about getting out of debt, being debt free. I love the subject of real estate, and I want to talk about passive income as well. All of those are important. Don't know how many of those subjects I'll get to today, but hey, we'll see how far we get to. So it is important to improve your level of financial literacy of what you know. That way you can continue to build and grow off of it. A lot of us are involved in finances every single day. You know, whether you have a 9 to 5 job or whether you're self employed, whether you're an entrepreneur, in some type of way or another, you are involved in finances because you are usually working for that dollar every day. The average person has a 9 to 5 job, and the company that you work for, you are helping them grow, you're helping them to expand, you're helping them to be cash flow positive by the work and the effort that you put forward. And so that's a great place to learn in itself. Just starting there, financial literacy is the money that you produce from working, whether it's that 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are, how to maximize and manage that money that you have coming in every single month. Are you cash flow positive or are you cash flow negative? And what that means is at the end of the month, after you've paid everything, do you still owe some more on that month? Or do you have cash left over at the end of the month after paying everything off? And so you want to be in the green, you want to be cash flow positive. And if you aren't cash flow positive, then there's some things that you need to tweak and some things you need to start making adjustments on. And is it always fun to go look up that stuff? Is it always fun to go find out where you need to make adjustments so that you can be cash flow positive? No, it's not. It's not always fun, but you should do it. I don't care if you find an Excel sheet and you get on an Excel sheet and you start writing down all your expenses, all of your bills, anything that causes money to move, uh, whether it's coming in or going out, anything that causes money to move, you need to be disciplined and go get a piece of paper or an Excel sheet or find a good app to start tracking those items. And so, what I do throughout the year is I write down every expense, every bill, everything that I have um, that causes money to leave my pocket. Those things are important. If you have bills and expenses that causes money to leave your pocket, then I think you should know what those things are and you should know how much they're costing you every month so that you can figure out how much they're costing you annually. Because when you think about it, why would you not want to know what is leaving your hands, what is leaving your pocket, what is costing you? So, as painful as it is to watch all of those things, write every expense down from A to Z. And for some people, they may be able to do this in a week. For some people, they may be able to do it in one day. But what I tell everyone is there's usually something you're going to forget. So this is something you want to monitor for at least a month or sometimes 2 months. That way you can find out the average because, for example, when it comes to utilities, when it comes to your electric bill, it may be different throughout the year, but you can find out what that average is. And if you find out the average, that's good enough. How much money you spend on gas, whether it's a vacation time frame, times of the season, then you may spend more money on gas during the holidays or on other months. So you want to find out what that average is. There's some bills that won't be the same every month, and there's some bills that will be the same every month. So, regardless, find out all of those bills and expenses and write them down. This is important for a number of reasons. Like I already mentioned, you need to know what is causing you to lose money. But some people always have the question of how much money should I put away for retirement? How much money should I use to invest? Well, the truth of the matter is, if you don't calculate what's coming in and going out, you really don't know how much to put away for retirement. You don't know how much money to use for investment. It's easy to throw a number out there, but do you really have that amount to be able to give to that desired investment, whether it's into your retirement account or whether it's to real estate or to a business idea, entrepreneurship? You don't know how much you can give if you have not accounted for what you have coming in and going out. So, one of the best things you can do with financial literacy is put a budget together. Take your time, get a budget done. When you get done with that budget, you're going to be so happy that you found out what you had coming in and going out because that's when the fun begins. Once you account for everything and there's nothing flying under the radar, some of those subscriptions that you forgot about, that was taking $20 a month, that was taking $10 a month. Once you find all of that stuff, you get to start making adjustments. That's where the fun part begins. And you want to make adjustments. For some people who say, I don't have enough money to put away for retirement, you will end up finding out you potentially could have enough money for retirement. I'll give an example. Let's say you had a Planet Fitness subscription, Planet Fitness, and it's coming out every month, whether it's $20 a month or whether it's $10 a month. That Planet Fitness monthly payment is there, but let's say you haven't gone to Planet Fitness in 2 years and you're not even using it. Technically, you could cancel it, or you end up calling your cable company or whoever, one of these service providers, your cell phone company, and you ask for some type of discount. You can't afford to keep making those payments, and they take off $25 off that bill. Well, now you've just created anywhere between $45 to $35 of extra cash flow at the end of the month. Well, now you can start up your retirement account. So that gives you an opportunity to open up a IRA. Now there's traditional IRAs and there's Roth IRAs. This would give you a chance to open up a Roth IRA and start putting anywhere between that that 35 to $45 a month. You can start putting that in that retirement account. And don't be discouraged because it's a small amount. You have to start somewhere. And you haven't even gone through the rest of those service providers and bills to find out how much more wiggle room you have to create that retirement account. So create a budget, set up your budget, find out what you have coming in, how much you have coming in, find out how much you have going out, what's left over at the end of the month. Then you can find out how much extra you have left over, not only to invest, but you find out those pool of people, those expenses that you can go through and do your best to reduce the expenses. Each one of them you go through and you find out how you can reduce them and or eliminate them. Like the Planet Fitness one, although health is wealth, not to say get rid of a gym membership, but if you aren't using it, then of course you need to get rid of it. Don't not exercise and pay them money when you're not exercising in their facility. You can use that money for yourself. So once again, create a budget. That way you can find your money. You can find that extra cash flow. And so that's a part of financial literacy. That's a part of improving your financial situation. Stop going off the top of your head, shooting from your hip when it comes to your finances. Take it more serious. Dedicate yourself. Dedicate time to your money. You work too hard for your money just to subliminally, indirectly, just give it away when you don't have to. You can actually use it to benefit you. You can use it to create generational wealth and live more comfortably. And so one thing, as we continue to talk about financial literacy, there is so many other elements to it, so many other elements to it that we can dive into. And so there's some people, when they talk about financial literacy, you have to figure out not only how you're spending, what's coming in and going out, but how much, the percentages. What percentage of your money goes to your needs? What percentage of your money goes to wants? And what percentage of your money goes to savings? So it puts things in perspective as well when you're trying to eliminate things in your budget that just don't need to be there. And so a lot of people get afraid of the B word when we talk about budgeting. But think about this. Don't think that a budget is restricting you or limiting you. You're setting up a budget so that you can be free. A budgeting is basically being able to be responsible, being an adult to monitor and steward what you have. You work too hard for your money not to monitor and steward it. And so it's not restricting you in a sense. It's actually allowing you to see what you're capable of. It's opening up your eyes to see how powerful your money is and how you can use it to benefit you. So open your eyes up and work on that budget. That way you can figure out how it can benefit you. And if you do see some limitations, it allows you to work on them. What do I need to do with what I have coming in and going out to get me to where I need to be? And so when you do that, it will free you up not only for the present, but also for the future. An important part of knowing where your money is going is also to figure out where you're going, where it's going to set you up. So when you're putting together a budget, you're putting together for short term and for long term. Everyone eventually wants to, I guess, what we call, use the R word, retire. And retirement looks different for everyone. Some people, retirement is not necessarily that you're kicking back on the island and you're no longer working again. For some people, retirement may be, I've created enough income, I've created enough passive income to come in to my pockets, into my accounts, that I do not have to physically clock in to a certain location to get paid. And so for some people, that is their goal. And if that's your goal, we have to put a plan in place. And it starts with your budget, because you have to find out, how much does it cost for me to live every single month? How much does it cost for me to pay my medical bills? How much does it cost for me to have life insurance? How much does it cost for me to keep the lights on? How much does it cost? How much gas am I using monthly? How much food do I eat every single month? What if I want to eat out? All of these things need to be calculated so you can figure out, how much does it cost you every single month to maintain your lifestyle today, and how much does it cost for you to maintain your lifestyle 10 years from now, when inflation makes the cost of living go up, not only where you live but also where you plan on living in the future, whether it's in the current state that you're in or if you plan on moving somewhere else. Now, of course, as I'm talking about all of this stuff, and I take a deeper dive into financial literacy, being debt free, and passive, creating passive income, feel free to like, subscribe, or share this feed, whether you are on YouTube or whether you're on Facebook as well. It's just basic, good financial literacy talk in information that we're talking about today that could help anybody. Everyone knows someone who needs to become stronger in financial literacy. So some of these things I discussed today will be pretty basic, and some of them may be a little more extensive. Some of this stuff may be information that you didn't know. And so I did bring up another word a few seconds ago. I said bring in passive income. And so passive income, in my own definition, is basically money that is coming in without me having to necessarily clock in or be at a specific location for that money to arrive to my bank account or to my pocket. So, an example, a decent example of passive income is, let's say, pretty simple. Let's say you own a house, a property, whether it's Airbnb or whether it's rental, and through that real estate, through that property, you are bringing in income. Through that property, a tenant, someone is staying there, and they pay you rent every single month, whether you live in the house, whether you show up to the house, whether you do any work, you name it, no matter what, that tenant is bringing cash flow to you, bringing money, that rent money to you every single month. That's an example of passive income. Now, another example of passive income, let's see, there is something else called dividend stocks. So, what I like about, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but when you invest in the stock market, you can have certain companies that you invest in. And if you buy a stock for, let's say, $2 a share, you spend $2, you own a share. And then let's say 2 weeks from now, that share, that stock price value is, let's say it's that share value is at $10. If you bought it at $2 and now it's worth $10, then you've just made $8 profit. It's increased $8 in value. So you have $8 potential profit if you were to sell it. And of course, that's one thing, to buy a stock, it increases in value, you sell it, and you make a profit. But you have some companies that, if you are a shareholder, they will pay you dividends, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, or whether it's annually. And so those companies that offer dividends to their shareholders, you get passive income. You get profits whenever they set them up, and you make that money. And some people have invested into companies and stocks for so long that they can live off of the monthly or the quarterly dividends that come from a company. So no matter what, whether they clock in, whether they go to work or not, those investments into that market in that company or that ETF, whichever one it is, will help pay their light bill, water bill, and everything else for that month. There are a number of ways to bring in passive income. So, when it comes to passive income, I think it is important to setting people up for what we call retirement, or being able to do what you want to do at any point in time, because no matter what, the money is coming in. So, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. Some people are intimidated and don't know how to go into dive into passive income opportunities, but we'll dive a little bit further into that later on as well. So, what's interesting is, and what I realize in hindsight, as I continue to grow older and things like that, is when you're in middle school and high school, back in the day, it may be different now, they did not do a lot of teaching on financial literacy. They did not do a lot of teaching on what passive income was, and, being debt free and things like that. And my point is to you is, because the system, whether it's the education system at the time, because they do not teach on it on the level that will be beneficial for the youth, and because they did not, you have to make it a point to educate yourself, to be creative with taking the initiative and educating yourself on financial literacy. Once again, financial literacy and educating yourself can change everything for your household. It can change everything for the circle of people around you when you're trying to build, when you're trying to improve your situation. So for me, I grew up in a household where we knew a little bit, but we didn't know a lot. When it came to saving money, we were told put the money in the kitty. Has anyone ever heard the word we put the money up in the kitty? And so that's all we knew about saving, was we take the money and we go put it up somewhere. I never seen the kitty. Can't describe it to you, but all I know was it was a place where we would go put up money for a later date, and it was called the kitty. Or sometimes when we were younger, you would have these big glass or plastic animals or whatever, bottle shaped things, and we would put money in piggy banks, and we would throw the money in there over and over and over, put money in piggy banks, and then the piggy bank would get full. Then after it get full, you bust it open, you count the money. Like, we did all kind of things that seemed cool, but it didn't make a lot of sense. And so even when you look at it now, like, what was the benefit of a piggy bank when truthfully you could have put that money in a savings account where it would have at least been making some interest? And sometimes we put money in places that aren't beneficial for us. It looks cool, but it's not necessarily beneficial. And so we have to, when it comes to financial literacy, put the money in places that are beneficial. And I mentioned before, whether it's a savings account, which is a high yield interest savings account. Don't just sit your money in a savings account that's like making less than 1% interest, when you can move your money to FDIC insured accounts that is making probably about 5% interest. That's a big difference. If money's making 1% interest, um, that's fine, or less than 1%, that's fine. But if your money can make 5% interest for you, why would you not sit it in there so you can actually make even more? That's the difference between making $100 a month or making $400 a month, depending on how much money is in that savings account, of course. So make sure that you use the bank and their financial weapons, their financial tools, to your advantage. And when you use them to your advantage, you can capitalize, because every time you sit money inside a bank, they're definitely going to use your money to their advantage, because they can loan out a percentage of your money as it's sitting in there. Every time they get fresh money, every time they get money from you, they can loan out a percentage and make money off of it. And of course, uh, they'll actually, someone just asked a question. They said, how do you go about getting savings that has a 5% interest? Great question. Very good question. Someone on YouTube asked. So there are a few companies out there that are doing 5% interest on savings accounts. And let's see if I can, well, I don't have my computer, not my computer. I'm using my phone. I was going to use my phone calculator, but I'm actually using it on YouTube. But I'll give name a few companies out there that are probably doing 5%, if not close to 5%. But whatever you have in your savings account, take that number and multiply it times 5% and divide it by 12. And that's what you could be making monthly off of that money. And essentially, when you do that, your savings account can grow faster now. So instead of it making less than 1%, now you can multiply it. Two things: get with your bank that you're with, where your money is sitting in your savings, find out what the percent is. When you find out what that percent is, um, look at that and then do the math on what it is when it's at 5%. So you can see the difference in the money that you would be making if you do move it. Fidelity is, to answer your question, Fidelity is one of the companies. Fidelity Bank is a company that has interest rates. I think theirs is 4.97%. And so that's one of them that I use. And like I said, whatever bank that you use, find out, are they FDIC insured? So are they insured so that if you do sit your money in there and something happens, you do know that you can get compensated back. I could be wrong, but I think it's like up to like $250,000. So if you have to sit 250,000 in one bank and 250 in another, but regardless, whether it's 10,000, 20,000, or $5,000, sit your money in a bank where you can get probably about 5%. There are a few banks out there, they do a little over 5%. A lot of the banks are like online banks that do this. So if you were to just Google high yield interest savings accounts. So to answer your question, just Google high yield interest savings accounts, and you're going to see a number of banks come up. Some will look familiar, some won't look familiar. Some banks, they'll do 4.5%. Some banks will be a little over 5%. And so the bank that I use, they do about 4.97. And I get extra money every month with my money sitting in that savings account. And it's definitely worth it. And so, like, I'll give a quick example. Some people are saying, well, how can I build up my emergency fund faster? So if something were to happen. And so a lot of people are taking extra $50 a month and putting it in their savings account, extra $20 a month, trying to build up their savings account so that they can have a cushion or something to fall back on when an emergency happens. Well, if your money is in a high yield interest savings account, and we go back to why it's important to build a budget. If your money's in that high yield interest savings account, if you were putting $50 a month to it, and let's say now you move it to where it benefits you and you're making 5%, and now it's making an extra $10 a month, extra $20 a month. I mean, if you have at least, let's say, $10,000 in that savings account, it's probably going to make about $40 a month. So my point is, and I'll use an example of if you had 10,000 sitting in that savings. If it's going to make an extra $40 a month, but you were trying to put $50 a month in there, now you would have $90 a month going in because you have your money working for you. So it's easier to build it up faster now because you used a financial tool that would benefit you and not just benefit the bank. So it's important you move your money to locations that benefit you. I hope that answers your question that you had about how do you go about getting a savings that has 5% interest. Try Fidelity. And of course, I can, when this is over, I'll send you like a link to that bank. That way you're not confused and you do find the right account that gives you that 5% interest, well, 4.97% interest. But keep in mind, and I see your name is, I think it's IMBIC Indeed too. So when you do this, if you had 10,000 in your savings account, SoFi is another one. So it looks like you probably did use Google. I was going to mention that, but SoFi is another one. I forgot what they're at. They may be at 5.1% or something like that. As you see, there are multiple banks out there, and a lot of people don't know that. And you have people, they may have, I don't know, $20,000, $50,000 sitting in a savings account, and it's making less than 1% interest. And they don't realize, if you take that $50,000 that's just sitting there and it's in a high yield interest savings account, it's going to make, easily, probably about $100 a month. And so what could you do with that? There goes the light bill, or there goes the water bill taken care of every single month. And now you're allowing your money to work for you. And this is kind of like on a small scale. And so I wonder if I can pull up a calculator without messing anything up. I'm going to see if I can. I am live, and let's see if I can pull up a calculator. So a lot of times when I discuss financial literacy, I like to do the math. So let's say someone has $50,000 sitting in a savings account, $50,000 times 5%, and it's making 5% interest in that high yield interest savings account. That's $2,500 that 50,000 is making. Now divide that by 12, because that's how many months are in the year. That's $208.33 that person would make that month. So if you have 50,000 sitting in your savings account, that's $208.33 that you would make. Now, the next month, when that bank is looking at your balance, they're going to see $50,208.33. So it's no longer the 5% on the $50,000. It's going to be 5% on the $50,208.33. So even though you made $208.33 on that 5%, it's going to continue to increase every single month. It's going to grow. So your 208 will eventually be 209, 210, to whatever it is, as long as you leave it in the pot to continue to grow. Now, of course, you could potentially pull the 208 out and pay your electric bill every month, or take the 208 out and put it in your Roth IRA account, or whatever the case may be, wherever you choose to use it. But in a sense, that is just a small, tiny example of your money working for you. And so a lot of people don't realize that they can potentially make their money work for them on a small scale. That's just a small example. Now, does everyone have $50,000 in the savings account? No, but you might have 10,000 in there. So $10,000 times 5% equals $500. $500 divided by 12, that is $41.66. So now you can make an extra $41.66 a month if you were to pull that $41 out. But if you don't, now you're going to get 5% on the $10,041.66, and it'll just continue to grow. So to answer your question on YouTube, Indeed is yes. SoFi is another bank that does have high yield interest savings, as well as Fidelity. But go, and once again, everything I say, go double check, go look and make sure that what I'm saying is correct, and make sure that the bank is FDIC insured, so that you can protect your funds as well. Chase Bank, to answer your question, someone asked, is Chase Bank one of those banks? I don't know if Chase has a high yield interest savings account. You would have to check with them. I doubt they have one that is probably around 5%. They are a very popular bank, so they can get business very easy. So they're not, they don't have to position themselves to pay us a bunch of money. But there's nothing wrong with having a checking account with one bank. And if you had to keep your savings in another bank because it's there just potentially for emergency. But my point is, if you want to build your savings account and your emergency fund faster, put it in a high yield interest savings account and let your money help you build it faster. In that example that I mentioned earlier, if you put $50 a month into your savings account to build it up faster, but let's say it is that $10,000 example we just used, and you're getting $41 in interest, then that $50 you were putting plus the $41, now you're putting $91 a month into building it up faster. And keep in mind, now you're going to get 5% interest with that 91 added every month as well. So it's just a faster way of building up your savings account. Good morning, Bishop Conyers. Good morning, Pastor Conyers of Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Hinesville, Georgia. And so it's pretty cool to serve with a pastor who is intentional about being aware of financial literacy as well. So no matter what culture, no matter what organization, no matter what environment you are, you want to make sure that you are being surrounded around of people that are intentional about making their awareness of financial literacy improve. Who wants to be in a circle where no one is growing? Just think about that for a second. Got one of these blue old school cups. Got my drink in here because I plan on talking about financial literacy for a good while this morning. I want to have some fun on social media, just helping educate people with the little things. I wish someone would have been there to help educate me about financial literacy when I was younger. I remember when I grew up in Savannah and I wanted to make some extra money. And I didn't even know as an entrepreneur, a lot of this stuff I was doing, I had no idea. We are so creative as a people. Listen to me. You are more creative than what you realize. And I'll give an example. My mom was raising 7 kids. And because she was raising 7 children, there was not always money to go around. And so things weren't always well. Things weren't always good. We didn't always have what other people had. Now, when you're in that environment, you don't realize how much you're going without, and your mom becomes your hero because you see that she's holding it down and doing the best that she could. But I always wanted to help my mom out by taking care of myself. I was always trying to find a way to help out. So when I was young in middle school, I started cutting grass in the neighborhood, mowing lawns, and raking leaves. I had no idea that I was practicing entrepreneurship, and I didn't realize that I was self-employed and I hired myself. So when you're self-employed, you essentially are hiring you. And so only you can fire you and only you can hire you because you're self-employed. You created an opportunity for yourself to work for you. So you set your own hours as well, and you set what line of work that you're willing to be in. There's a lot of power in being self-employed, not only the time benefit, but also taxes. Now, keep in mind, when I was young and in middle school, as far as paying taxes on the money that I made when cutting the yards, well, that's a whole different story. And so what I was doing was going around to neighbors and said, hey, can I cut your grass? Can I cut your grass? And I would make money. And that would allow me to either buy food, groceries for the house, and also it would allow me money to buy my school clothes. Because what I found out in elementary school was if my mom gets to pick out the clothes that I'm buying for school, they're going to be a certain brand and they're going to look a certain way. But if I went and made my own money, then at that point, what I wanted to buy and the brands and how they looked and the quality was completely different. So my money, using my money, I got to spend it a different way. And I enjoyed being an entrepreneur at that time, cutting grass and doing these different things. I do wish I did know about putting my money in a savings account to grow faster, although a savings account is not the end all to making more money. And indeed, I hope that answered your question when you asked about the 5% interest savings account. I think you found some options there. But when I was cutting the grass, I learned a lot. I learned a whole lot. You'll learn a whole lot about entrepreneurship, and I'm still going to touch on the subjects of passive income, being debt free, and financial literacy. But this is a key component in it. When you are self employed and you find a way to make your own money, I learned how to negotiate at a young kid, as a young kid in middle school. When I'm trying to make money and I need to convince this person they should let me cut their grass, a kid that's 11, 12, 13 years old in middle school, I have to negotiate. And I'm negotiating not with another 11, 12, and 13-year old. I'm talking to an adult. And so, parents, when we're talking about financial literacy, allow your children to engage in, whether you have nieces and nephews, allow them to get a taste of being self employed, being creative, finding something, way for them to make money on their own with your guidance, because it's going to teach them a lot of principles that they'll use later on. And it'll actually motivate them to eventually either be self employed or have their own business, because there are so many benefits to it. And so there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5. And I'll get into that later on as well, about working a 9 to 5 and what your mindset should be while you're working there. But there's nothing wrong with it. But I learned so many intangibles negotiating with adults, and you make mistakes. For example, the first few yards that I was cutting when I was young, young, all this energy, um, I was my prices weren't right. But I was so happy to make money. I'm like, oh, I made $20. Oh, I made $25. I was cutting front yards and backyards, walking lawnmower. And so I was just happy to. But then when you start working and you're sweating, and then you realize time is going by and you could have cut another yard. And I realized that my prices were too low. And for my quality, I needed to increase the prices. So many people were saying yes, not because my negotiating skills were so amazing, but my prices were so low. Why would you tell me no? So I was happy I was getting business. And who knows, I might have been, there's so much to learn. Walmart dropped their prices and put everybody else out of business years ago. And this is a good financial lesson when you talk about how powerful Kroger's used to be, and Walmart kind of used to be at a certain position. And then you have your Piggly Wigglies and all these places. And then Walmart came out of nowhere and kind of caused them to minimize their business. Walmart became a one-stop shop. Plus, their prices were so competitive that they got most of the business. So I don't know, I may have put a few lawn people out of business because my prices were so low, but then I came back and increased my prices. That's a great strategy, but I didn't do it on purpose. So I increased my prices and I still kept the customers. And here's something interesting that happened. Eventually, my lawnmower broke. And when my lawnmower broke, I was sad because I thought I couldn't make any more money. And this is why I'm telling you to be creative when it comes to finances, because sometimes we think certain things are broke or there's not another way to make money, but there is. You just have to be creative with how you think. You have to use your full potential and your mind on what else can I do to create cash flow, because some of the things that you are already doing would provide an opportunity for you to make cash flow. You just have to challenge yourself in your thinking to bring in more money. And so when my lawnmower broke in middle school, I couldn't make any more money, and I didn't know how to fix lawnmowers, although I did try to work on fixing a lot of things. I used to watch a lot of MacGyver and A-Team, so I would put anything together, take it apart, put it back together. But my point is, when it comes to that, I started asking people if I could cut their grass, and they would say, well, do you have a lawnmower? Because I would go to their house and I don't have any equipment. I said, well, if you have a lawnmower, I'll cut your grass and I'll make the price less. Negotiating, being creative. There's so much of that you can do now. And what's funny is, if I ever didn't have enough money, I could use some of these same skills and negotiations and create a lawnmower business tomorrow. And I'll explain to you further why as I explained the story of not having a lawnmower, but still being able to make money. Oh, that's so good right there. Just think about it. Not having anything, but being able to create something. Not having anything, but being able to create a business through a conversation. Just let that marinate right there. Just think about it. I had no equipment, but through a conversation, I was able to restart my business. Yeah, I like that. So I got this one gentleman, and he said, "I tell you what, I'll let you cut my grass, and you can use my lawnmower." And so I would always go cut his grass about every 2 weeks, and he let me use his lawnmower. And then when I came back, he said, "I tell you what, I'm going to buy you a lawnmower, Simon, but you have to work for it. And you can cut my grass, but I'm not going to pay you. But whatever you charge me to cut your grass, I'm going to deduct it from the balance that you owe me for the lawnmower." Hmm. Business was still in effect, and I had no equipment, but I negotiated and made a deal. I could not afford to buy a lawnmower. The customer bought the lawnmower, and I cut his grass at least, I would say, about three times, because back then you could get like and this is years ago. This is back in the 90s, so I can't remember all of it. But you could get a push lawnmower for I think like $100, $90, $100 back then. Not sure how much they cost now. But I cut his grass like 3 or 4 times, and then I owned the lawnmower. So I worked for it, owned it, and then that allowed me to get back out there, and I could cut multiple people's yards again and make money. And so that allowed me to buy my school clothes and allowed me to buy groceries in the house because my mom was raising 7 children. Now, did I always share my groceries with my siblings? No. I bought stuff for me, things that I wanted. So anyway, and every once in a while I would buy milk or something like that to help out with the house as well, because with 7 children, we could go through a gallon of milk in one day. And what's funny is sometimes my mom would make us take a cup. So we would use milk, like you could use that cup, and that's what you had to measure for the day. And anybody who likes a big bowl of cereal, you know what that struggle is, trying to get that one little bit of milk. Anyway, that's another story. So what I'm saying is, through negotiating, through entrepreneurship, get your kids involved in entrepreneurship and creating business for themselves. And you never know what they may end up creating for themselves in the future. But most importantly, the fundamentals and the things that they'll learn in financial literacy through negotiating, through counting money, through learning how to communicate and talk with people effectively and things like that. Actually, one of my sisters is pretty creative. I almost burned myself. But I'm actually burning one of her candles right now, but she's pretty awesome. Let's see if I can turn this to this camera. A banana pudding candle. So, and I'll show the Facebook audience as well. She makes these candles, and I call them different flavors, not scents, because when you smell them, it makes you want to have that meal. This one is like just peachy. That's what she calls that one. And it smells like a dessert. Mm, almost like a peach cobbler, but it has, she designs them. It's called Posh. Oh, there go my eyes. I believe it's Posh Lifestyles. If not, I'm gonna get in trouble. But it's okay. So when I get done with the video, I'll probably, if she has a link, I'll put it down there. But anyway, back to financial literacy. Getting a savings account and putting money in a savings account to save, that's like on a low scale. That's just some of the basics. I want to do a deeper dive into financial literacy and setting yourself up for success. One of the other things you can do with financial literacy to set yourself up for success is to get out of debt. To get out of debt. My sister said I'm okay. So worst case scenario, if you are on Facebook, you'll see her down there, Anitra, teacher slash baker, party maker. She got, I'm trying to freestyle with her Facebook name. Get on there, and you can connect with her and get one of those amazing candles. I got a bunch of them. And what's crazy is they smell so good, and I like the design of them. Sometimes I don't even want to burn them. because I like looking at them and smelling them. So in a way, they're almost like art. It's a candle, but it's also very artistic in the look of it. So um, she made candles that I don't want to burn. But so anyway, that's just another example of being creative, having nothing but creating a product, or not having a lawnmower and negotiating a deal so that you can have. So when we talk about financial literacy, and keep in mind, if this is something that is good for someone that you know, feel free to like, subscribe, and share this information, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Facebook. Feel free to share this information to help somebody else out. That's what we want to do. We want to help our community out, and we want more people to be aware of things that they can do to improve their situation. Now, even when I talked about the example of savings accounts, a lot of us have our money sitting in savings accounts and it's making less than 1% interest, right? And so I just gave that example of how $10,000 can potentially make an extra $41 a month. But if it's in a low interest savings account, and let's say it's $10,000, and let's say it's only making 1% interest, which we know most of these accounts are making less than 1% interest. Uh, that's $100 divided by 12. That's $8.33 a month. So you can make $41 a month, or you can make $8.33 a month. So 41 minus 8, anybody know what that is? 33. So when you look at that, that's an extra $33 a month that is going to waste. Now, once again, just remember, most accounts are less than 1%. So I'm kind of giving those regular savings accounts a little extra. So 33 times 12 is an extra $396 a month. Keep in mind, even though I'm basically saying that's an extra, a year, not a month. That extra $400 you could be making a year, that's if it's not compiling, if it's not compounding, and you were just pulling it. But if it were to compound, then of course it would end up being a little bit more. But that's an extra $400 at the end of the year. What could you do with that extra $400? You can use it for Christmas gifts if you want, or you can use it to make an extra payment towards your mortgage payment. As you see, I'm getting to more of that conversation about getting out of debt. You can use that extra $400 a month for a number of things. You can use it to go on vacation. So you can use your savings account to help fund your vacation plans, as opposed to using your monthly income to pay for those things. So it's important, when you talk about financial literacy, to get out of debt. In other words, there's a lot of bad debt out there, and a lot of people have a lot of credit card debt, a lot of personal loans and student loans, and a number of other things where they just owe. Some people just owe people money and need to pay them back, and they need to figure out how to do that. So when you do your budget and you are practicing financial literacy, one of the things you need to do is figure out not only how much do you have left over at the end of every month, so you can find out how much to invest, but you also need to find out how much you have left over at the end of the month, so that you can get rid of debt that you should not have. Credit card companies are probably making about 20 to 27% a month interest on what you owe them. And if you do have outstanding credit card balances, you need to find a way how to stop that from happening, because essentially you are giving away money to financial institutions. And so people are always giving money to financial institutions unnecessarily. I just gave an example of how financial institutions could give you extra money every month by moving your money into high yield interest savings accounts. And now I'm showing you not only how to get more money from the bank, but then how to give them less money. And so by those two actions working together, it puts more cash flow back into your pocket. And so it's a way to double up financially. So when it comes to financial literacy and eliminating debt, you have to be creative with paying back credit card debt. Some people have one credit card that they owe. Some people have multiple credit cards that they owe. And there's so many different strategies to eliminating credit card debt, whether you're using the avalanche method, the snowball method, if you're using the cash flow index method. There's a number of ways, and some people are just doing it, in a sloppy way. They're just kind of shooting from the hip, trying to figure out how much extra I'm going to pay on this one and pay a little extra on that one. And there's no strategy behind it. And you have to be very strategic on how you do things. Now, there's a number of ways to eliminate debt, and I've used a good number of them as well, whether it's mortgage debt, whether it's credit card debt, uh, any type of consumer debt. There's a number of ways to eliminate it, but you have to, most importantly, do a budget first. If you want to seriously get rid of debt, figure out what you have left over at the end of the month. Figure out how much money you're spending on wants, on things that you don't necessarily need, and get locked in, get focused on truly trying to get rid of debt. When you have a heart and you're truly trying to get rid of debt and you've made up your mind, that's what you want to do. Some of the wants, some of the things that aren't necessary in your life, you will go without them, or you will put them on a temporary pause or hold so that you can get rid of the debt first. And I think what scares some people and what holds them up from getting rid of debt is those wants, those things that you like a lot, that you just figure, I have to get my hair done. I have to get my nails done. I want to go to the movies. I want to go hang out. All of those things that aren't necessary. Oh, but I like to go out to eat there once a week. That's my favorite spot. All of those different little things that slow you up from eliminating debt, you have to remember this. It's temporary. It's temporary. You are putting a hold on some of those favorite things you like just for a season, just for a moment. It doesn't mean that it's going to stop forever. Now, some of them you may end up finding out that you don't even want to do anymore. You just put an end to it and you realize it's not necessary. But some of that stuff, you're just going to stop for a little while. I've helped so many people get out of debt. I've helped so many people get their finances back on track. And what's interesting is as they practice discipline, as Pastor Conyers just put in the comment section down there, as you practice discipline, some of the things you don't even want to do anymore. You just have no desire to continue to add to your plate of debt. And so when you do your budget and you find out what you have left over at the end of the month, and you're also eliminating some of those wants temporarily, you start having extra money to throw at debt. And of course, if you ever go on my YouTube page, Coach Steele's Finance Training, you're going to find videos on there that show those other options on how to get rid of debt, whether it's the cash flow index method. There's a video on there. I have a video about the avalanche method. I don't think I've done a video on the snowball method yet. May have done one years ago, but you'll see some of them on there. Of course, you'll also see information on there about about accelerated banking. That's another way to get rid of debt, but not just consumer debt. But if you want to pay your mortgage off faster, you can connect with me and I'll show you and guide you through that process with accelerated banking on getting rid of mortgage debt as well. And it said, one person in YouTube named Shake said, how do you get your savings interest rate higher? Good question. And it's very similar to the other question we had earlier when someone said, how do you go about getting savings that has a 5% interest? So Shake, how do you get your savings interest rate higher? Move that money to a bank that is going to benefit you. What's funny is, and I used to be in the military, like we don't like to change things. People in the military, we don't like to move things around. We get it in one place or one mindset. This is what we do every day. And if you do one little thing and it throws us off, we just have a whole temper tantrum. So some people get into a robotic pattern and routine. And whether it's in life or whether it's even with the banks that we're with, we get accustomed and dedicated and loyal to certain banks, and the banks aren't even loyal to us. Think about it. What type of relationship would you stay in? Anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone. Listen to to what I'm saying when it comes to money. So money, when you're talking about how do you get your savings interest rate higher, one, give your bank a chance. The bank that you're with, and I'm going to tell you what they're going to say too. I got to memorize. Give the bank that you're with a chance to offer you what else they have far as products. So when you're trying to get a higher interest rate, and just to let you know, Shake, the average high yield interest savings account, which is what you're looking for, is probably around about 5%, maybe 4.5%. And so that's what you want to get. That's what you're looking for. But your current bank, ask them, what is the highest interest I can make in a savings account? What do they have to offer? And they may tell you 1%, they may tell you 2%. Do not settle. Getting 2% interest on your lump sum of money and 5% is two different things. Your money grows faster at the higher rate. Same thing when that's why banks increase the rates on our mortgages, because at these higher rates, they make more money. They make more profit off of us every time we make those monthly mortgage payments if you have a mortgage. So get the higher rate. Don't be loyal to a bank just because you've had your money there for 10 years or 15 years or 2 months. So ask them first, and they're going to tell you. But if they don't have a high yield interest savings account that can get you anywhere between 4.5% to 5%, I would move my money to a high yield interest savings account. That way I can benefit. And so that's one way. How do you get your savings interest rate higher? Talk to your bank. Now, we'll tell you this, Shake. Once you tell them you want to make more interest on your money, they're going to, if they don't have a 5% savings account, a high yield interest savings account, then they're going to try to dangle and entice you with CDs. And when I say CDs, certificates of deposits. And that's why I like this conversation, Shake, because for somebody who does not know what these terms are, when they go into a bank and they hear, oh, wait, there's a CD. What does a CD do? Well, this certificate of deposit, how do I put this? They will give you a higher interest rate for your money. But if you commit to the CD, the certificate of deposit, the bank then essentially gets to hold your money for a certain period of time while it makes that higher interest rate. So they'll offer you a CD if they don't have the 5%. And the CD may have 3%, 4.5%, it may have 5%. They may hold the money, whether it's a year, 5 years, whatever the agreement is. There's some CDs that have 3 months agreements. So, but your money is sitting in that CD and you should not touch it. If you pull it out before that agreed time for that contract agreement, then there's going to be some type of implications. There's going to be some type of fee attached to it if you pull the money out too soon. So think about this. If you get a high yield interest savings account, you can move your money back and forth with no consequences, no fees attached. But if you get a CD, now you have fees attached if you move that money too soon, and your money is trapped. So you can't even use it. It's not a bad thing, but why would I trap my money when I can make the same amount with my money not trapped? So when my money is making interest every month, if I choose to use it, or if I choose to use it for another opportunity to put in a say in a retirement account, if I use that money to put in to pay for my life insurance policy, whatever it is, I want to be able to have access to my money. So CDs aren't bad, but they do not have the same freedom as the savings account. So I'm not going to trap my money when I don't have to. And so that's how you get higher interest on your money. And to answer your question, how do you get your savings interest rate higher? Find a bank that has the rate that you're looking for, which realistically is anywhere between 4.5% and 5%. And like Anitra said on Facebook, move that money. Move it to a place that is going to benefit you. I'm a firm believer in always moving my money in a place that benefits me and is like on my tolerance level. Whenever I move money, I want to move it where it meets my tolerance level, my level of comfortability, where I don't feel like I'm taking such a huge risk. I work too hard for my money to throw it away. So I'm not going to do that. So if I do take a risk, it's probably something that, I don't know, it's a certain amount of money that I really don't, I can live and go without. I'll be okay. So when we talk about back to being debt free, you need to really do your budget to figure out what you have access to help you get out of debt, and what system you're going to use to get out of debt. Don't be over all over the place when you're trying to figure out what debt to pay off and what debt to take care of, to where you're just throwing money all over. It has to be systematic. It has to be strategic. So if you got 3 credit cards, for example, and I would say make all the minimum payments on all your debts. But if you have extra cash flow at the end of the month, let's say you have an extra $200 at the end of the month, take that extra money and use it on one of those 3 credit cards. And so you'll always take that extra money at the end of every month and throw it at that card while you're making minimum payments on the other two. When that one card is paid off, and let's say you're doing an extra 200 a month on it, then take that 200 plus that minimum payment on that card and then start attacking the next card. And you put all that extra on that next one while making the minimum. Don't get caught up trying to be all over the place. And Shake said, gotta go, gotta go. We'll rewatch when I'm able to. No problem at all. Yes, take your time, go back and rewatch it. And I'm excited for you, Shake, because I already know that you're about to start making more money on your extra cash that's sitting around. And never get discouraged, anyone. I don't care if it's an extra $2 a month. What you're doing is you are getting yourself in the habit of making your money work for you. And it's like going back to the gym. So if you make your money work for you and your money's in the gym, right? It's in these financial institutions and it's doing its reps and it's pumping out these reps. And at the end of every month, your money is exercised and it's making an extra $2 a month for you. And eventually it's extra $40 a month, extra 300. Your money is getting these reps in. Getting these reps in is not only conditioning your money, but it's also conditioning your mind. I like that right there. There's something good about that. I don't know what it is, but it felt good to me. Start conditioning your mind and getting your mental reps in and your money's physical reps in to start paying you back more money. I'm telling you, we work too hard. And if you can't figure out how to get your money back in your pocket, these financial institutions and the service providers will find a way to get the money back in theirs. Just look around. You know, every once in a while, you'll look up and Netflix will be telling us that they're increasing the bill just by a little bit. And so, as they continue to increase the bill, we lose a little bit of money. Every time I see something like that, it tweaks my mind, it piques my interest. And I'm saying, okay, if Netflix is getting extra $5, how do I compensate for that? How do I make up for it? Who do I need to contact? One of these service providers, somebody got to give me $5 back if Netflix is taken, or I'm canceling something. Because whenever I'm doing my budget and I'm making progress, I never want to be set back. I always want to be moving forward. Keep that in mind. If last year you had extra $100 left over at the end of every month, then the next year you want to have at least $101 left over at the end of every month. Think of it that way. And then that's just a small increase. But if 10 years ago, at the end of every month, I had $100 left over, 10 years later, I don't want to have only $100 left over at the end of every month. I want to potentially have at least $1,000 left over at the end of every month. So anytime a service provider or financial institution or whatever happens, something shifts in your life, start being creative and figure out how you can still continue your road, your path to progress without being set back. Setbacks will happen, but they should be temporary. They shouldn't be long term. They shouldn't be chronic. They shouldn't be reoccurring to where there's not an end to it. So we want to get rid of debt, and we get rid of debt by making sure we know what we have in our budget. And once we know what we have in our budget, then we can start being strategic with eliminating debt. And like I told you all, hands down, one of the best ways, fastest ways to eliminate debt, especially if you have a mortgage, is through accelerated banking with the Kwok brothers using the HELOC strategy. It's just phenomenal. I've used it myself. don't want to stay on this long, but I had a 30-year mortgage. I went to them, got a free assessment. They gave me a free assessment. And from that assessment, they told me it would take 5.5 years to pay off my mortgage. And I was excited because I was going to go from 30 years to 5.5 years. That was a win for me. I did the math and I knew full circle that would stop me from paying for my mortgage at least twice because I would be paying the bank interest for 30 years. Um, and what's interesting is some people, when they say, oh, don't pay off your mortgage because you'll miss out on the tax benefits from it. Oh, do the math, do the math, do the math. When you benefit, the tax benefits of not paying off your mortgage is basically at the end of every year, the bank is going to give you, your mortgage company is going to give you, I forgot if it's called 1099, 1098. I should be able to find one in a second because I get them all the time. So it's a 1098. So when that bank gives you a 1098 at the end of every month, I mean, at the end of the year or whenever you get ready to do your taxes, based off of the interest you paid on your mortgage for that year, a portion of that interest you paid is you're able to write off on your taxes. So let me see if I can find the one I just pulled up. So, for example, one property, it says my mortgage interest received was like $3,297. So I get to take a portion of that and write it off on my taxes, $3,000. Think about this. What if your mortgage payment is $1,000 a month? Do you want to keep paying $1,000 a month, which is $12,000? Or you're spending $12,000 for the year just to write off potential $3,000? Or no longer have a mortgage. If you no longer have that mortgage payment, you no longer have the $1,000 a month, and I'm talking about the principal and interest part of the mortgage. If your principal and interest portion of your mortgage is $1,000 a month, and you pay off your mortgage, then you can't write off that $3,000, but you have an extra $1,000 a month. That's $12,000. Keep the $12,000 in your pocket or write off $3,000. Do the math on that. I want the extra $1,000 a month in my pocket because do you know what I can do with that extra $1,000 a month? I can create more cash flowing opportunities. Or worst case scenario, I can sit in a high yield interest savings account every single month, and whatever $3,000 write off, I'll balance all of that out with the interest that I make from a high yield interest savings account. So accelerated banking with the Kwok brothers. I'll leave a link in here as well once I get off live in case you're interested in that. But we want to eliminate debt. We want to get rid of debt, and getting rid of debt helps free up your cash flow. I'm big on having cash flow left over at the end of the month. That's what we want. We don't want to come out to where there's nothing left over at the end of the month because, living paycheck to paycheck is not fun. Living paycheck to paycheck is not what we want to do. I've had to do it many times, multiple times, but why do it and continue to do it when you don't have to continue? So you want to break that pattern and you want to do the things that are necessary to get out of living paycheck to paycheck every single month. And some of the ways of breaking that pattern is eliminating debt and being creative and creating entrepreneurship for yourself, creating more cash flow and creating job opportunities. One of the books that I read a long time ago was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I wish I was being paid for advertising this book, but it helped shift and change my mentality. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And and he has multiple books. Even this one right here talks about cash flow quadrants and things like that. But one of the things that he did was talk about how everyone is in this cash flow quadrant. And let me show Facebook, Rich Dad, Poor Dad as well. And so somewhere in this quadrant, you find yourself. And whether you're an employee or whether you are self-employed, if you have a business, or if you are an investor. And so out of those four, you could find yourself in any one of those categories. And that helped open my mind up as well, because most people were just the E. They were the employee. They were working a 9 to 5 job. And so that's where I found myself being just an employee. But Robert Kiyosaki opened my mind up to, and I started thinking, well, how can I be in all four quadrants? What can I do to where if that's where everybody's making money at, I want to be in each one of those spots, bringing in money. And so that's something else that you can do to challenge yourself. Um, and one of the easiest ways to become an investor is to do a budget. Find out how much money you have left over at the end of every month so that you can start investing your money, whether it's in the stocks, whether it's in the real estate, whether it's into yourself, to create those self-employment opportunities, to make candles, to make other creative things that you desire to make. That stuff is not as complicated. And sometimes it's as simple as getting someone else to do it and you fund it. So you can work together with other people and do business together. I plan on doing a few self-employment and business ventures as well, trying to be creative, make things for myself as well. Uh, well, I don't care if you're taking money to invest in creating content, if it's writing books, you name it. Start being creative and challenge yourself. So I'll give an example about, I'll dive into real estate. So the average person sometimes is, they can be intimidated with trying to figure out, should they dive into real estate or not? The dangers of it, the risk of it. And so when it comes to real estate investing and finding properties and does it make sense, you got to get your feet wet. And I'm not saying dive into a deal, but start doing the research, start doing the homework. There's so many videos about real estate investing and things like that. So you have to be careful who you're listening to and how you're doing the math on that with finding deals, because there's plenty of people diving into deals that aren't cash flowing, that aren't beneficial. You need to figure out how much do you plan on making, like far as percentage, far as when you're trying to make a profit. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing up real estate is I'm talking about passive income. And real estate is just one way of bringing in passive income. And so when we deal with the word real estate, which I'm writing down, when you're dealing with real estate, of course, and trying to create more income for yourself, you want to be smart. You want to be wise, because don't make a big investment which is going to cause you to lose money. You never get into real estate to lose money. You get into real estate to gain money. And you want to be creative and know why you're diving into a deal, whether you're diving into it because there's equity in the deal or whether you're going to be cash flowing. And so some people, they worry about real estate and whether or not they'll make money, but find out how much everything costs. There's some calculators that you can use online, mortgagecalculator.org, where you can plug in all the numbers and estimates to see, if you buy this property, how much money are you going to be required to pay every month to maintain this property, and also what are the comps in the area as far as rent. And so those are things to figure out. What is it going to cost me? What is the liability on my end? And then also, what is the rent going to be set at? Not what you in your mind want to make, but in that area, what are the comparables? What are the comps in that area to where you can get rent for that property? And the income that comes in minus the liability, minus all your expenses, what is that profit left over at the end of the month? And then how much money did you have to put down to get that monthly income? And so from all of those numbers, you're going to be able to find out how much money, what's your return on investment. Now, I won't dive into the math on that. That's a whole lot of other simple math being done. But just some of the simple things to remember when you're looking at real estate, and some of the things one of the simple ways of thinking about it is 3 letters, MPI. And so you want to figure out how much the monthly mortgage is going to be, that mortgage payment. And then you also must understand that with that principal and interest payment on that mortgage, there's going to be property taxes and there's going to be insurance, MPI. Those are three things that you know for a fact. With the average deal on real estate, you have to know what your MPI is going to be. Now, there are some properties that actually do have HOA fees as well. So keep that in mind. You want to know what the HOA fees. I know y'all love my lovely board, but I've been using this for years, and it's been making me money. So anyway, MPI. Some deals may involve HOAs, and you have to remember PM also as well. If you're not going to manage that property, you may need property management as well. So those are just some of the things to think about. But if you don't have property management and there aren't any HOA fees, you can look at MPI and figure out how much the mortgage payment is going to be. What are the property taxes? If you don't know, you can find that. That's easy to find. You can look up a property in that county, that city, find out what the average property taxes are. Once again, this is all research you can be doing to find out if a deal makes sense for you. And as far as insurance, you can get estimates from an insurance company. So sometimes when we're looking at the homework we should be doing and looking at in regards to real estate, some of the legwork you can do on your own just to start doing the math to see what does this deal look like for me? What is the going rate for rent in this area so I can know what my profits potentially look like. And if you are an investor, you may end up having to put more money down on that property. So you can start doing the math on, okay, how much is going to require for me to put down on this property to make the transaction happen. And you can talk to a brokerage company. You can talk to them and figure out and start doing estimates to figure out what those interest rates are going to be for you as well. So you already have your numbers and everything. So then when you dive into the deal, you're not as intimidated because you know what to expect financially and you give yourself a wiggle room and some cushion for worst case scenarios. And that's why I like deals with equity because worst case scenario, if I find a deal and there's equity in the property, and what I mean by equity in the property is if a house is worth 160,000 and I got a deal and I bought the house for like 130,000, then when I close on that house and I own the house, I could turn around and sell it for 160,000. I can make 30,000 profit. Of course, there's going to be potential taxes to have to pay on that unless I creatively find a way to have it written off and reinvest the money in some other places as well. So I like deals where there's equity in the properties, there's equity in the deal. So, worst case scenario, I can just get off the property, make my profit, and keep it moving, or I can come out even. So, I never want to lose on a deal. So, either I'm going to have great cash flow or I have equity in the deal. And through that, it brings in more income, potentially more cash flow, or you can take those profits to help you eliminate debt if you end up selling a property like that. And so there are properties out there where you can make money because you make a deal with equity in the property as well. Just take your time, continue to do research to find those things. So I was talking about being debt free and did kind of dive into the whole subject of real estate and because I wanted to talk about passive income and how important it is. It does not have to be real estate when you get passive income. There's a number of ways to make passive income, like I mentioned, whether it's real estate, whether it's dividend stocks, whether you're writing books and the books are selling and they're selling monthly or annually, or whoever organizations are buying large sums of them, and you're making money, whatever it is, if you got candles online and people are buying them, there are a number of ways to make passive income, and we have to engage in those options now. We need to start creating those options for ourselves now. It is very, 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 very important that we set that up for ourselves. Start thinking now. How can I make money without clocking in? How can I have income? How can I build assets without having to be physically present? That's important for a number of reasons. When 2020 hit and you have a pandemic, people are losing jobs and companies are having a lot of control of what you can make and when you can come to work and when you can't, and whether or not they want to keep you. What if you have passive income? Then it's not as traumatic. It's not a stressful situation if you have created opportunities for you to make passive income. Passive income is a way that if you're not comfortable or happy with your 9 to 5 job, that you can eventually transition yourself out of that 9 to 5 because of the passive income. The passive income is very, very, very powerful tool for you to get to where you need to be and to help give you a certain level of financial security. So there are a lot of people that don't have a conventional 401k plan. You may not have a retirement account that is connected to your job, or your job and what you make in your 9 to 5 is not enough to fund it to help it get to a certain level to where you feel comfortable that after 10, 15, 20 years, you can walk away and retire with that retirement account being enough to fund your next phase of your life. So, with that passive income, if it comes from another place, you can have more money coming in to either supplement that retirement account or help fund your retirement account. And that's one reason why I do enjoy the benefits of real estate, because you can take income from a rental property and use that income to help fund your retirement account, whether it is your 401k or whether it's your IRA, whatever it is. If you have extra income coming in from rental, then you can have the company increase what extra is going into your retirement accounts, or you can do it yourself. Now, I will tell you, like people who are self employed, there are certain retirement accounts set up to where they can put up a whole lot more money in retirement accounts than the average person can. So you can set up your retirements using these different tools, far as connected to the stock market, or you can set up retirement situations that are disconnected from the stock market. I like the idea of having both, because if the stock market is struggling and not doing well, then the other things that I have going on the other side will help balance and compensate for that as well. So some people say don't put all your eggs in one basket. And all I'm saying is diversify, give yourself multiple options. Some eggs should be in one basket, and certain baskets, all your eggs shouldn't be in because of the volatility of that very thing. So start being creative and thinking about how you can create passive income for yourself. Just because you've never done it before doesn't mean that you can't do it now. Just because you've never seen anyone do it before doesn't mean that it's possible. You know, back during the caveman time, they didn't have refrigerators, but we have them now. It had never been done before, but now we all like going to the refrigerator and pulling out, whatever it is that we take out of there, whether it's a yogurt or a nice cool glass of water or lemonade, you name it. So just because it's never been done before, you should still try it. Go after it, because you never know what you may end up creating. And so we want to create cash flowing assets. That's what you want to create, cash flowing assets. And one way that I think, and I'll probably talk for maybe about 5, 10 more minutes before I get off. But one way that I think, and the logic I have, is I try to create assets for liabilities that I have. So I'll give an example. Let's say you want a new car and the car costs $500 a month. It's possible to create an asset that brings in $500, $600 a month to help pay for that liability, that car that you want. So start training your brain to think that way. I mentioned earlier about training your brain and getting the reps to have your money work for you, and start training your brain on how to create assets to pay for the liabilities that you potentially want as well. Now, at the same time, when I mentioned about having the car that you want, I've never done this, but it's possible. You can take that same car that you want and rent the car out for a certain number of months or for a year or so, and rent that car out on a certain platform and have someone else pay the car down. And once they pay that balance off, now you own the car outright. It's paid in full, and now you have the car you want. So there's a number of ways to get exactly what you want. Same thing with the house. If there's a certain house you want, technically you could Airbnb it and have people pay it down, the mortgage balance, pay it down, and eventually, if you wanted to, you could move into the house after it's either been paid off completely or paid down. It's pretty interesting because everyone say, okay, well, I want this to be my retirement home. Now, not to say that you want 30 people living in your retirement home before you finally get in there, but technically, you could have someone renting it out temporarily until you finally get to the point to where you want to live in there for retirement. So there's a lot of creative options, and that same property could end up helping you pay for the home you want if you just continue to rent it out and got another house. So start thinking about the power of passive income and how you can use passive income to get what you want. There was a time where I thought having insurance was too expensive. I thought that trying to get life insurance was going to cost too much. But once again, if you create a cash flowing asset, it can help pay for those things that you thought were too expensive. And getting insurance doesn't cost too much. Like what costs too much is if you don't have insurance on things or life insurance. That's what's going to end up costing you more in the long run. So start putting things in position, start getting yourself ready. I'm going to continue to go live and talk about financial literacy every week, hopefully on Saturday mornings, hopefully a little bit sooner than this. But my walk went a little bit longer than I expected it to this morning. And some of this stuff may be repetitive to you, and then some of it may be brand new to someone else. But we're going to open up and engage in the conversation of financial literacy. If you have any more questions, feel free to jump in there and ask more questions, and I can try to respond back to them, or we'll deal with them on the next time that we meet up. Shout out to everybody that did involve themselves, and shout out to my people on YouTube that jumped in here and engaged in the comment section. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. Look forward to next time. Other than that, you all have a blessed day. Thank you, Pastor Conyers, on the excellent teaching. I just try to be like my leader, you know what I'm saying, and do excellent teaching as well. So once again, I appreciate everyone and look forward to talking to you and seeing you again. And once again, YouTube, Coach Steele Finance Training. Happy to have everyone a part of the team. And so on a team, you got starters and you got people that come off the bench, but everybody matters. And so I look forward to working with everyone. You have a blessed day.